Oh, hello. My name is Mara, and welcome to Books Like Whoa. So I am currently supposed to be editing a video that is supposed to go up tomorrow. By the time you see this, that will have been well in the past. Time, what a weird cluster when you're filming such things. Anyway, I'm supposed to be editing that, but I cannot because my computer has crashed, even though it is a brand new computer. And I am waiting for the reinstall of the OS to complete. So while that is happening, I was like, oh, this is perfect mood for me to talk about a video or to film a video that I've been thinking about, which is books that deal with the topic of female rage. And I mean that in like a positive construction. So it is Women's History Month. And last year, I think I talked about like lesser known feminist texts. And this year I thought I would talk about books that are either overtly or thematically about women's anger and it being construed in a positive way and not as something that is like condemning towards women. So while I'm in an annoyed mood, we'll talk about exploring female anger and the fact that women are allowed to be angry, women are allowed to get angry, and that women's anger actually can be very powerful. So we'll start with a few nonfiction picks that kind of overtly deal with the subject, and then I'm going to transition into books that I think thematically are about female anger. So nonfiction wise, number one, I would definitely recommend Good and Mad by Rebecca Traister. This is talking about how women's anger has been harnessed and used in positive political kind of context throughout history. And her argument is basically that a part of why we have cultural narratives around like containing and suppressing female anger is that it is such an effective political tool. And anyway, it's a very interesting book that I highly recommend. And I think it is very eye-opening to think about like what a swarm of angry women can get done in the world. So that one I would definitely recommend. In terms of a memoir that talks a lot about female anger, I think Eloquent Rage by Britney Cooper is a good one. And she's talking a lot about sort of her identity, her intersectionality, right? So like the anger and tension that arises from being both Black and a woman, and also I believe queer. So I think the subtitle here is A Black Feminist Discovers Her Superpower. So it's a personal memoir about her exploring her anger and using that like in a positive way in her life. And then I did want to mention a book that I am putting on my TBR for this March that I have not yet read called Rage Becomes Her, Power of Women's Anger by Soraya Chemaly. And this is one that actually my friend Bethany sent me quite a while ago and I keep meaning to get to, but I made it my March pick for nonfiction. So I'm excited to get to this one. And as you can see, women's anger very explicitly is what this book is about. Okay, and now I'm just going to run through a list. So we'll just go in no particular order. Top of my pile, The Poppy War by RF Kuang. Now, this is an interesting one in contrast to a different book. And actually, you know what? We'll go ahead and just talk about them together because I do think thematically they are quite similar. In contrast to Book of the Ancestors series by Mark Lawrence, this is not yet a completed trilogy, so I don't know that we've gotten like the full view that R.F. Kuang has of women's anger yet. Like, I'll be interested to see how this series wraps up and how that thematic thread is resolved. In Book of the Ancestor, I think that this thematically is a lot about women channeling and using their anger in a way that makes them more powerful and that like demands to be heard. So I think that this series, I can definitely tell you, has sort of like a very positive take on women's anger. This one, I could see going either way. I'm going to guess she's going to end up viewing women's anger pretty positively, but there is both of these are fantasy, so they both have overt power structures where anger becomes literalized in some version of magic or a creature. Like in this one, there's this demon that I think serves that function. Whereas in this, the heroine or our main character's power literally involves her ability to like get angry and immolate things. Immolate, not emulate, immolate things. And I don't know, it depends on kind of how she ultimately uses that power in this series. It'll be interesting to see. But this one I definitely think is a lot about growing past an expression of anger that doesn't get you anything and growing into like letting that anger be more of like the underlying seed of your kind of like fount of power. So anyway, I think thematically these books are actually quite similar and I will be interested to see how Poppy War ultimately handles that content. Then A Heart and a Body in the World by Deb Caletti. Now let me warn you, this book is a weeper. This book will make you cry because it is a lot to deal with. But I think that this is a lot about women's anger and grief and how part of grieving is allowing yourself to be angry and allowing yourself to express it. And I love the way that this book takes the emotional content of what our main character is experiencing and projects that into a physical act. And I don't want to say a lot more because I think this is a book, it's a very quiet book in some ways and it deserves to let you like see its kind of tricks and secrets unfold for itself. But I just think, yeah, this is like a really beautiful book that looks at anger as something constructive, which I think is probably a theme in most of the ones we're going to talk about. But it's looking at anger as something constructive towards self-acceptance and being able to grieve something that happened and accept the person that turned you into. Oh, and I even say, like, basically the setup of this is a girl who has something really tragic happen in her life, and part of her process of like getting over it is she starts going on a cross-country run without a lot of preparation, but her family gets behind her, her community gets behind her. It's a YA book, and it's just really, really good. Undercover Bromance by Lyssa K. Adams, which actually comes out this March, is I think a lot about women getting mad, like kind of we're mad as hell and we're not going to take it anymore. It's that towards a sexual predator, repeated sexual predator in their workplace, and it just feels good. Like all these women who have been wronged, eventually being able to channel their anger and like make a difference. It is very satisfying. I think it's very relevant to the Me Too moment, and you know, it's packaged in sort of this romantic suspense plot, so you do have a romance happening. So I think, you know, the overall tone of the book is one that ultimately ends up being very positive, and I think one of the positive parts of it is women who have been just like hurt and not had solidarity with each other being able to find each other and work together to serve justice. Another magically one is The Library at Mount Char, and actually I probably could have put this in with The Poppy War and Red Sister, because I think this is about a woman who found her power and found her magic, or whatever it ends up being called in this book, because this book is very weird in terms of genre, if it's sci-fi versus fantasy. It's about a woman who had to go through awful things to be able to get her power, being able to unleash her anger and take it back. Like those who abused her to make her a pawn for them, she is able to turn the script on them. Now, I will say that I think that the redemptive part of her anger is very late in the book, so you have to go on a journey there. But to me, it's there, and I like where it takes her, where she's able to stay angry about things that she should be angry about, and ultimately still move into the person that she decides she wants to be. Kiss of Snow by Nalini Singh. Now, check this cover out. This was before the Sci-Changeling series got redesigned with covers that had more of a mass appeal as opposed to just paranormal romance readers. But Kiss of Snow, I think, is really interesting because the main female lead has a power that is incredibly rare. Nobody else in this world has it. And it's a literalization. It's sort of like Firestarter. It's that kind of a vibe. And this sort of like a very one-to-one metaphor of her overwhelming emotional response and being able to unleash that. And it's interesting because I think this is a book that I think very much is metaphorically about women making peace with the place of anger in their life. And because she spends most of this book and most of the series being very scared of her power because nobody has really survived having it. Like eventually it will kill them. And so I think it's her making peace with the part of her that is capable of the level of destruction she is capable of. It's I think a metaphor about letting go of our expectations or the social constructs we have around an intense emotional response, and like essentially the way out is through, I think, is sort of the metaphor here. But I do think in the series this is one that deals with that sort of metaphor most directly. Also, look at the man titty. Who can say no to this book? And then I guess we'll end on 3 revenge fantasies that are all sort of thrillery things. So first, I think SADIE definitely falls into this category of being very much about female anger. And like I said, these are all kind of revenge fantasies. So SADIE is sold as YA. I'm gonna tell you the protagonist is 19. I think that generously we can call it new adult, but it's not YA that I would hand to like an 11-year-old, basically, would be the warning I'd give here. But I do think it's a very well-written book. It's told in dual timelines. So there is a podcast, like a crime podcast that's being recorded about what happened to SADIE, the titular character, and her sister. So there's that happening, and then you're actually following SADIE on her journey, and you're finding out firsthand what happened to her, and awful things happen to her. So all the content warnings. And I think this is a lot about her finding agency in the context where she has been just chronically abused and mistreated. So there's definitely, I think, a revenge fantasy aspect there. There's also a revenge fantasy aspect in Brotherhood in Death by J.D. Robb. There's a few in the In Death series I think that could fall into that category, but basically there's a man who is murdered at the beginning of this book. Very quickly looks like it's very personal, some sort of revenge fantasy being enacted on him, and the story progresses from there. I will just say that I do think that this is a lot about women joining together in solidarity to be mad about being abused. And then finally, the most satisfying of these revenge fantasy ones for my money is one that imagines a woman who has sociopathy and therefore doesn't experience shame about her anger and her plans to take revenge, and that is Jane Doe. This is, I guess, a thriller, but it reads more just like a character study. It's very satisfying to me. It's not going to be for everyone, obviously, but because I should say Jane is a very strong flavor of a character, and if you don't like that flavor, you're not going to like this book. I love that flavor. I love this book. It is basically her taking revenge on behalf of her friend who has been completely wronged, and just her ability to act with impunity towards everyone because she feels no shame is very satisfying. So I think that's all of the angry lady books that I wanted to highlight for this video. So as I said, happy Women's History Month. This was what I wanted to do this year to celebrate the history of women, and just to remind my fellow ladies, like, there's a lot of social conditioning that you're not allowed to be angry or just like have aggressive emotions, and that is not true. Of course, as with all human beings, like, there are extremities that one can go to in these things, but the same way that men are conditioned that it's weak for them to feel vulnerable or them to be emotionally open to other people, women are conditioned that it is unfeminine for them to feel angry or for them to express displeasure in a direct way. So let's all just fight the patriarchy. Let's all just be allowed to experience the full range of human emotions, because we are all full human beings who experience all manner of emotions and should be allowed to express them however we would like. How about that? So with that, definitely let me know any recommendations you have about books with women being allowed to be angry, or where that's a big piece of the thematic content. Maybe let me know your favorite angry woman who's been painted by history as aggressive. I'm gonna go, let's see here. I'm gonna give a shout out to Mary Wollstonecraft, writer of The Vindication of the Rights of Women. She definitely got the whole angry, hysterical mashup by her current culture, but she kept it punchin', wrote one of the most important seminal feminist texts of all time, so keep it pushing, Mary Wollstonecraft. And with that, I think that will do it for now. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, follow me on the social medias if you are so inclined. I have all that information listed in the description box below, and I think that will do it. I hope you are having an absolutely lovely day today, and I will just talk to you soon. Bye!